And welcome back to A to G Lifestyle, where we're fighting the cultural pursuit of money, power, and sex with the fulfilling pursuit of confidence, discipline, effectiveness, efficiency, and focus. How are we doing, gentlemen?
We're good. You're going to need to work on that intro, but everything else is good.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to disagree with you hard on that one. This is the second episode we've done it. I love everything about it. Gavin, what for here, Gavin?
I'm doing pretty good. I kind of side with Andreas though.
Oh,
don't kill me.
Oh, I'm very disappointed. Very disappointed in my co-host.
It's all good.
But, it is what it is. We're about to get into it. We got a fun topic on the table for today. Gentlemen, what are we looking forward to most about discussing Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter?
Just a discussion on free speech, man. I just feel like there's a lot of hypocrisy and weird nuances to this whole thing, and I'm excited to get into them.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, there are. Andreas, anything interesting?
It's a very strange situation. I'm gonna have to do something real quick. I'll be right back.
Oh man, I asked him to provide an opinion, and he left. Would you look at that? That's disappointing.
He provided an opinion on the thing that he had to go do, and it was he had to go do the thing. That was his opinion.
You know what? Fair enough. I'll give him crap for the intro later anyway. So, it all balances out in the end. But before Andreas gets back, I should remind you all to like, share, and subscribe. You guys as watchers, viewers, listeners, however you contribute to the content being produced on this channel are very, very important to the success of this channel. So we thank you first and foremost for your listenership. If you're watching this live, thank you for tuning in live. If you're listening to this post-recorded, thank you for listening to it post-recorded as well. We sure hope you decide to join our live at some point in time because we want people to contribute to our discussions in the comment section. And who knows, you might end up being on the stream if we feel like we trust you enough. So, hop on in. It's a fun time. It is a very fun time. Like, share, and subscribe. All the rest. Oh, Andreas is back.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
He's returned. Is that a different hat? A different cowboy hat this time?
It was the same one I was wearing just a second ago.
Oh, was it? Wait, but that's different from the first episode.
It's distinct. It's visually distinct.
What? Man, I'm not paying attention.
Styling, dude. It's styling.
No, also, I left my other hat somewhere in between these two episodes, and I need to go track it down.
This is the makeshift cowboy hat. You know what? Fair enough. If they all work as they're all beautiful. They're great. All right.
Okay.
Anyways.
So to answer your question, this whole Twitter acquisition has been very enlightening on just the involvement of various parties in monitoring and controlling speech. And what we believed was, the public square. And so that's what I'm excited to talk about in just a minute.
Fair enough. That's good stuff to be looking forward to, gentlemen. I've already gone through my whole spiel about telling the listeners to like, share, and subscribe, so I sure hope they've done that by now. But other than that, why don't we hop right on into it? And in case you haven't read the title yet, we are discussing Elon Musk and his whole purchase of Twitter. I'm getting distracted right now because Andreas keeps offsetting my camera switching on the live.
I keep trying to move you over, and it keeps not moving over.
Literally offset. We're literally doing the same thing at the same time, and it just offsets. See, this is the fun stuff you miss if you're not on the live. This is why you got to get in live, guys. Get in here. We have fun. But anyways, where was I? Yes, Twitter, and the whole reason why we're here having this discussion right now, right? So I'm actually going to break this down from the very beginning. I'm gonna discuss the whole. I'm going to give a good summary. I'll put it that way. I'm going to give a good summary of what we're dealing with here as it pertains to Mr. Musk. So effectively, Twitter has been very unprofitable in its short lifespan over the last, decade and a half, however long Twitter's been alive. And it's been competing with apps like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the others for social media dominance. And it's struggled heavily. It is significantly less used than all of those other social media apps. And as such, they've found it difficult to turn a profit. They've turned a profit in 2 of the last 10 years, I believe. So Not good. No good. No bueno. So Twitter's kind of struggling. This is early 2022, right? They are actually on the verge of potential bankruptcy if they continue that trend throughout 2022. But here comes Elon Musk to do what Elon Musk does best, which is spend lots and lots of money and invest lots and lots of money too. But it actually goes back before he initially made an offer for Twitter, in that Jack Dorsey, the former CEO of Twitter, actually wanted Elon Musk on the board of directors of Twitter. I don't know if we knew this. I heard this for the first time when I was doing my research. But
that was after Elon Musk got the 10% stake before he decided he was going to buy Twitter. I think it was a 10% stake. It might have been a 9% stake, but something significant.
Mm-hmm. Is that when he bought the majority share?
No, that's not majority share. 9% is not majority.
Sorry. He was discussing before he was discussing buying the thing. He was discussing maybe just buying a majority, right? So it was before that. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. But he bought like 10% or something. So that's when that happened. So again, Dorsey, former CEO, Twitter, wanted Elon on the board of directors. The board of directors refused to add Elon to the board because they cited him being too much of a risk. Fair enough. Musk then criticized Twitter publicly for not allowing him to be on the board of directors. And this actually upset Parag Agrawal. I don't remember exactly what his job with Twitter was at the time.
I think he's trust and safety.
Was he? Okay. Because he sent Elon a message after Elon went public criticizing Twitter for not allowing him on the board. They had a huge back and forth. And effectively it ended with Elon saying, hey, you know what, Parag, I don't need your nonsense. I'll just make an offer to take the company public. And that's...
You mean take the company private?
Private, yeah.
Oh, sorry, private. Did I say public? Yeah, private. He attempted to take it private, man. Anyways, Elon wants to take the company private. He's gotten in an argument with Parag. Anyways, Musk then he made a major decision. He made a major play to secure financing, obviously, for the deal that he'd be engaging in, buying Twitter. He secured lots of financing for that. He also cited several objectives that he'd want to accomplish during his time as owner of Twitter, with the company being private. I think a few of those objectives included maybe reaching like 1 billion users by the year 2028 and even quintupling revenue by 2028. So Elon's coming into this whole deal with a plan, it seems like. Those are just a few of the objectives that he had on the table. Fast forward to May 2022, and Elon halted the deal for concerns of bot presence on the site that were initially higher, or they ended up being higher than he initially expected them to be. So there were more bots roaming around the site. And as such, people kind of thought this could have been a pretext for him to maybe get a lower deal on the overall package that he was trying to purchase the entirety of Twitter, or maybe even just back out of the deal entirely. Nonetheless, It was causing problems. Then effectively on July 12th, 2022, Twitter sued Elon for sort of backing out of his initial agreement. Right? And they were effectively trying to force him to complete it, which ended up working because in October, he ended up completing the deal about 3 weeks before the trial with Twitter would have begun. So they ended up getting the deal done. Elon ended up buying Twitter for $44 billion.
Can we pause there for a second before we continue there? The reason that trial was that 3 weeks later is because a judge ruled against Musk to ask for, if I remember correct, more discovery on the bot activity at Twitter. So since Musk wasn't going to be able to have his evidence for that trial, that changed the calculus of purchasing Twitter in that moment, because he didn't necessarily want that $1 billion fine that would have occurred if he didn't purchase Twitter.
Okay, fair enough. That's good background. That's much needed. That would explain a few things then. But yeah, effectively he ended up buying Twitter for $44 billion. That's not what most people would consider chump change, eh? That's like a decent amount of money. Whole $44 billion. And this was kind of the start of a lot of problems for Elon during this whole process. So he actually took out about $13 billion in loan to finance this deal. And that ended up resulting in him agreeing to a contract of about $1 billion in yearly interest payments. $1 billion in interest. Like, goodness gracious, that is a lot of money. That's otherworldly amounts of money. But that just goes to show you the scope of this deal, right? So Elon started his whole new ownership of Twitter, taking Twitter private. He started out by trying to get the company's finances in order. Twitter at the time was taking about $4 million in daily losses. They were losing $4 million a day when he took over. So what he did what any reasonable new owner of a company would do if they're losing money. He fired as many people as he saw. Effectively, it's what happened. He fired the entire board. He got rid of several executives, hundreds of employees and contractors worldwide. So we're talking India, Australia, Brazil, all employees of Twitter, or not all, but a significant amount of employees who were employed by Twitter in those countries were let go and operations were halted. To the point that less than 50% of Twitter's entire workforce was remaining after 1 week of Musk's ownership. Dang. Elon then brought in several engineers from Tesla, SpaceX, and the Boring Company to try and figure out the whole logistics behind who he wanted running the organization and the employees that he needed to carry out certain objectives. So that's what those engineers that he brought in assisted him in doing. And what they ended up finding is that some of the employees that Elon had let go and fired during that first week were actually kind of important for some of those objectives that they were trying to meet. So what they ended up doing is they ended up going back and saying, hey, sorry, we fired you. Can you please come back and work for us? So they ended up that, I'm sure that was in the news. That was in the news, actually. Many people probably remember that, where he fired people and a few weeks later he was like, hey, can you come back? That was pretty big news in this whole transition of the storyline. But effectively later on, Elon then implemented a new work hour enforcement and regulation as it pertained to how long company employees would be working. I think I saw something that it was up to like 80 hours a week. Am I correct?
I didn't see that. I just saw that Musk is saying that if you're going to stay at Twitter, you're going to have to work hard, right? And that was something that most people, sorry, I got a cat who keeps trying to get my attention. And so basically, you know, he put out a memo to all of the Twitter employees saying that if you're not going to work hard, then you can't stay. And that was his big statement. And that purged a lot of Twitter employees at that point too. So I don't know if it was 80 hours, but it was more than the 30 minutes that we saw in the TikTok videos of the community and safety people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, hey, that's what happens. That's what happens when you get a man who knows how to make money coming in to kind of shake things up, right? So like you kind of just alluded to, he gave employees an option, either work insane amount of hours a week or be laid off for a pretty hefty severance. Unsurprisingly, several thousand employees accepted the severance and they were out. So all of this kind of trickled down, all this chaos trickled down to then Twitter's main source of revenue, which at the time and still is advertising. I believe I want to say that Twitter's revenue is like 90% advertising. Am I correct in that?
It has to be. Yeah,
it's something crazy like that. It has to be, because that's really the primary way you make money if you are a social media company. You get advertisers. The advertisers pay you to advertise on your website. So Twitter's main advertisers, like their top 100 advertisers, like half stopped advertising on Twitter during the period, the initial stage of Elon taking over the company and all this chaos ensuing. Companies like General Mills, Pfizer, Audi, several massive companies just stopped advertising for fear of that chaos kind of being associated with their brand. And in order to combat these concerns by a lot of their major advertisers, Twitter ended up starting Twitter Blue to try and compensate for the lack of advertising and to give some more security to the users. So effectively what it was you'd pay $8 a month to get the little blue verified check mark. Very popular across social media. Twitter, I think, is the first one to actually make it a pay to get thing with Twitter Blue. So you pay $8 a month.
It was a pay to get thing before Twitter Blue too, which is something that is kept hush hush. But you know, you have a Twitter employee approach somebody and say, if you pay 10 grand, we'll give you Twitter Blue. Or the blue check mark. And that was leaked out. Or $40,000 or $50,000 or whatever they think they could extort the particular individual out of to get that verified check mark.
Yeah, that happened to me on Instagram too, I think. Some dude he slid in my DMs. He was like, hey, you want to be verified? Well, cool. You can pay me and I'll verify you. So yeah, there was a way to get verified by paying beforehand. Now it just happens to be legal and being promoted by the company itself. So it was $8 a month. The goal that Elon had for Twitter Blue is to make it easier to get your tweets seen. So effectively what it would do is it'd filter up the people who are verified and paying for that Twitter Blue subscription. It filtered their tweets to the top of feeds, and all the unverified people would get filtered more towards the bottom. And that was kind of to cut down on a lot of spam and a lot of bots and all that stuff. So financially, it made sense. Practically, user-wise, it made sense in theory. And unfortunately, Elon failed to take into account the person perspective and the fact that people do very stupid things. Mass impersonation occurred across the app. People pretended to be verified accounts. Yeah, people pretending to be Pepsi, George Washington, what have you. And this caused lots and lots of confusion. Most notably, the most impactful of the impersonations happened when an account impersonated Eli Lilly & Co., which is a large pharmaceutical company. I don't know where they're located, probably in the United States, I'm assuming. Yeah, but they actually flash crashed on the stock market because somebody impersonated their Twitter account and tweeted out a tweet saying, quote, "We are excited to announce insulin is free now," end quote. So yeah, this caused a flash crash. They lost like 3% of their stock value in like 5 days. It was not good. And this was quickly seen as a problem, the whole Twitter Blue thing, and that people could actually use this for bad intentions. So this is now starting to go very poorly. This led to Elon announcing that impersonation that didn't clearly specify that they were parody would end up being permanently suspended or banned. So the whole thing is starting to come a little bit down now. The house of cards is starting to collapse, so to speak, I guess. And then later on, Elon announced that a potential plan to transform Twitter into a Western version of WeChat might take place in the future. For those of you who don't know what WeChat is, it's used huge, I believe, in China. Speaking of topics that we talked about recently, China. WeChat is an app that allows users to message, social network, engage in peer-to-peer transactions, e-commerce, etc. And Elon thought that maybe they could implement something that WeChat had, which at the time and still is in operation today, which is the fact that off of every transaction that occurs on the WeChat app, they take a small little fee off of the transactions that occur. So Elon's like, hey, maybe that's something we'll implement in the near future, the far future. I don't know, but it's something on the agenda. So he's now trying to backtrack at this point in time to try and make Twitter seem like it actually has a plan and kind of deflect from the chaos. But anyways, in December 2022, Elon's Twitter files began to roll out. Now, what the Twitter files were was effectively him revealing the sort of behind-the-scenes occurrences that happened under the previous management of Twitter. It involved the release of several stories that covered things from Hunter Biden's laptop scandal, former Twitter management inappropriately censoring certain content politically, the FBI or other governmental agencies, maybe being involved in some way, shape, or form with management and dictating and sort of surveilling or manipulating certain aspects of the social media. It was a lot of things that were released in that whole Twitter files thing. And as a result of the chaos, all this chaos was put together. Elon posted a poll on his Twitter saying if he should step down as the head of Twitter. He asked the question. And I believe the total votes accumulated out to like 57% said, yeah, he should step down as the leader of Twitter. And 43% said he shouldn't. So obviously he said he was going to abide by the rules or the results of the poll. That's what the results of the poll were. So far, he does not have a successor set up to take over as the CEO of the company. So with that, I do want to deflect it out to the gentleman. What do we think about Elon's chaotic purchase of Twitter?
Well, Gavin, do you want to start before I start talking a lot?
I mean, I don't really have much to add on. I just are we going into like the opinions yet, or are we doing a little bit more background first?
It's whatever you want. Good. It's whatever you want. Free flow conversation.
You know that?
Yeah, okay.
You know that? Wait,
we're going
you know that Burger King
opinions
commercial,
here.
Gavin? You know the Burger King commercial?
No.
BK, have it your way. Have it your way, Gavin. It's all yours.
Okay. Well, I'm talking about Kathy Griffin with the impersonation thing. I just think it's so funny because I think one of the things that I did want to touch on too, like one of the reasons that at least Musk was saying he wanted to buy the company was to make it a little bit more of a free speech safe haven. In a sense, not necessarily like a free for all, just say whatever you want, no consequences, but more of like a not, I guess, as repressive or oppressive. I don't know what the right word to be there would be. But like after Musk bought the company, Kathy Griffin, a comedian, impersonated Musk. She like changed her Twitter profile to match his and then made some stupid comment or something. I don't remember exactly what she said. I couldn't find it. But he then banned her account and then reinstated her. And it seems so short-sighted and immature and incredibly not thought out at all. And that's just kind of like, that's my thing with this whole thing. It doesn't seem like it was thought out very well at all. He seems like he kind of just did it because Elon Musk, he kind of can just do what he wants. I didn't really think too much of the consequences on it. But Andreas, I do want to turn it over to you and see what you have to say on it.
Well, I just want to say that, it appears from the outside that Elon Musk bought Twitter because of, the Babylon Bee banning and Babylon Bee not taking down the supposed offensive tweet that they posted. And so it seems, like a half thought out plan. But what I think is significant about this Twitter purchase is just how much of the background we see of what's occurring at Twitter that is just very corrupt, and reminds me of Project Mockingbird back during the Church Commission, where we saw that the news media was infiltrated by United States intelligence in order to control what news we saw. And we see almost the same exact thing within Twitter, which is just, it's very, I guess it's not shocking because we saw it historically before with Operation Mockingbird and that being revealed in the Church Commission, but it's very much the same thing, in which, various intelligence agencies of the United States are controlling the discourse of the American public, which got exposed via Twitter. So I thought that was very interesting. We'll get into those Twitter drops in a second. Mm-hmm. But in general, on the purchase of Twitter, I don't think Musk had very much of a plan on what he was going to do. It sounds like now that Musk is going to allow content creators to monetize Twitter in the same way they can monetize YouTube or Facebook and get revenue based on ads and content that people are bringing to the platform. So I think it's likely that is going to bring more content creators into Twitter. In regards to the whole impersonation thing, I don't think it was handled very well, but I think Musk is trying to balance interests in impersonations of corporations and prominent people with his goal of free speech, which is not going very great, with the whole Eliza Blue situation and other, free speech issues. Gavin?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Eliza Blue situation a little bit more because I haven't done a whole bunch of research into it, but from what I know, Brittany Ventney, or however you say her name, Venti, yeah. She pointed out something about Eliza Blue maybe not being all that she claimed that she was, being someone who claimed to be formerly someone who was formerly human trafficked. I don't think that's the right phrasing for it, but the idea gets across. Yeah, sex trafficked. She was someone who claimed to be someone who was sex trafficked, but Brittany Venti pointed out that, hey, why are you doing a naked or like a really close to naked rap video if you were sex trafficked? That doesn't seem to add up.
The timeline was the issue. So the same time she was doing that, half naked video was the same time she was claiming she was trafficked. And that doesn't make sense, especially with the context of the videos where she was so excited those videos got out. And I believe there was some evidence that was dropped by either Venti or Quartering saying that, Eliza Blue was begging, World Star Hip Hop to make that video to begin with. So it's the whole timings of everything don't make sense with her claim of sex trafficking. And it's just, if the timeline doesn't match, then it can't have happened, right? If I claim to be somewhere and then I was somewhere else doing something that's provable, it gets very strange. Unless she's claiming that World Star Hip Hop trafficked her, which would be kind of hilarious, because it would be If that was true, that'd be very interesting. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
So censorship appears to still be the way it is, right? Because after Brittany, right, pointed these things out, posted the picture, Eliza Blue got her account taken down. She got the Quartering's account taken down. She got Camelot 331's account taken down. She got Yellow Flash. I think she got Tug. I'm not sure about Tug. But, and then a bunch of smaller Twitter people that were pointing out this supposed bad lineup with a timeline, as well as posting pictures, disproving what Eliza Blue was saying. Well, why is this related to Elon Musk? Well, Elon Musk, when he took over Twitter, Twitter had a large problem of CP on its platform. For example, I believe there was a case where somebody got tricked into sending CP of themselves to another user on Twitter or Snapchat or something. That got posted to Twitter, and that person was unable to remove that content from Twitter, okay? And even with lawsuits and all that other stuff, Twitter was allowing CP content to remain on Twitter despite it being evidence of CP, right? And so Elon Musk said, I'm not going to let this happen, right? So he brought on Eliza Blue, it appears, to write the new policies for content moderation in regards to trafficking and CP. Okay, so he brought on this victim advocate, as she calls herself, to begin to create these policies. Well, when Eliza Blue then got exposed by Venti, Quartering, and a plethora of other people, right, pretty quick after that famous Timcast episode about Andrew Tate, well, she, using that ability, began to rewrite the policies at Twitter, right, and begin to get rid of her and her people, get rid of all of these people that were criticizing Eliza Blue. So it shows that censorship is still on the menu, as it were, at Twitter, because she had the ability and the power to control discourse on Twitter, still under Elon Musk, who claims it's free speech. But, and he hasn't really, I think he's disavowed her now, but for a long time, he was just letting this occur and knocking out various people wanting to discuss this very issue. So as Gavin, you were saying before, free speech, even though Musk claimed that he wanted it, he has not been able to bring that back to the platform. It was also seen when Elon Musk refused to bring Alex Jones back to the platform, despite bringing back a bunch of other notable figures, because Alex Jones was too much for Elon Musk.
Well, to deflect Alex Jones really quickly, would Elon's decision not to reinstate Alex Jones have anything to do with the fact that he did have that lawsuit that he was ordered to pay? Or I think it had to do with Sandy Hook.
Well, with that Sandy Hook thing, Alex Jones, if you don't know, I pay attention to a lot of this nonsense because if you don't notice, I tend to know a moderate amount of things about a lot of topics. That both those cases against
right
Alex
there.
Jones, what?
Understatement right there, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those prosecutions for Alex Jones were severely biased against Jones to a crazy significant extent. For example, how they got him into that Connecticut court is I believe he had a manager of something, and then the driver of that manager was from Connecticut. So therefore, the Connecticut court had jurisdictions of Jones, which I believe is two attenuated things away. And they brought suit, and then they dropped the charges on everybody but Alex Jones. Alex Jones had no connection to Connecticut, for example. The judge during that case, I watched the judge state that she would what do you call it? Basically, not the prosecutor, but the plaintiff in the case, right, was doing things that were not ethical, in my opinion, for questioning of Alex Jones and things like that. And the lawyer on Alex Jones's side said, "Hey, why are you letting this happen? This is not right. You're unfairly biasing the jury, things like that." And the judge says, "Okay, well, tomorrow I will make sure that if this activity occurs, I will sanction the judge, not the judge, the lawyer who's doing it, and prevent them from doing any, putting sanctions and all sorts of other things on the person that is behaving in this way tomorrow." Well, the person who's going to behave in that way tomorrow, in that case, was the lawyer for Alex Jones, right? And that judge had already indicated that she didn't like that lawyer, and it would have been bad for Jones. So there was just complete disgusting bias. If you were to go back and watch that trial, which I highly recommend you do, it was so blatant that this not prosecution because it's not criminal, this legal action of Jones was so orchestrated and so vindictive from this biased judge and that's why we got the outcome that we got of $1 billion fine. And I believe they're trying to get 2-point-something trillion out of him after that. And it's just,
good Lord.
And it's beyond corrupt what I saw in that Alex Jones trial. The behaviors that were occurring, how they got him into the court, and there's no way that Jones would have had a unbiased jury inside of that community, because this occurred in Sandy Hook, and they were almost taking the crimes, right, performed by the guy who shot up Sandy Hook and placing them on Jones. And that's not proper. It's not right. Jones has the opportunity for free speech. And this was a defamation trial. So basically, these people that were going against Jones needed to show that they had so many damages because of the way that Jones spoke about them. And since the reward was $1 billion, they're saying that these people, despite Jones, altogether would have made $1 billion is ludicrous to me. These people were average Joe people, and so there's no way that they have $1 billion worth of damages from the way that Alex Jones spoke, right? Because they weren't, they're not millionaires, they're not huge corporate people. They didn't lose those contracts. They're still making money right now. So it's like, how do you have $1 billion worth of damages from Jones? It doesn't make sense. It was biased. It was corrupt. And if you allow actions like that for the people on the far end, right, what's going to happen when it becomes you, right? We were talking about, I think it was in the chat, not on stream, about how in New York, there's a case right now where there was, what do you call it? There's a memester, right? Person who makes memes, who I believe posted something on, is it Facebook or it was Twitter or something, saying like the wrong information on the day to go voting and things like that. And that judge, right, recently pulled that guy in because apparently the internet traffic went through that district, and therefore that court had jurisdiction over this guy. And then that court said, well, we're going to make sure that only fully vaccinated individuals will be allowed to serve in this court, right? So now you've got, I know this has nothing to do with Twitter, but you got me ranting. You've got this guy now who's in I think it's the Eastern District of New York, who's improperly in that district of New York. And the law that they say that he supposedly violated was a law that was created, if I'm not mistaken, for the Ku Klux Klan, right, to prevent their activities. And he's being charged with it. I think it might be 20 years in prison for that crime. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I'm just giving you the gist. And he's charged with that when it doesn't make sense for the supposed thing that he did. in a biased court, right, that is forcibly taking jurisdiction. He tried to transfer, I believe he tried to transfer the case to the Southern District of New York, which is not much better, but it's still better than this Eastern District of New York, if I'm not mistaken. And then the judge says, well, we're only going to allow the people to be in the jury that are fully vaccinated, which means that they've gotten every single booster that's required. And those people are more likely to have been voted for Joe Biden in this case, right? Because this is a conservative leading guy, and have been more amenable to being pro-government and pro the state, right? They're not as self-thinking as some other people. So that judge is forcing an outcome for this trial, and I think this guy's going to get convicted just because of the way that judge has been corruptly handling the situation. So going back to Chris's statement of, is Jones being kept off Twitter because of what happened in Connecticut and Texas? I don't think he is. I think Musk is keeping. Well, first off, if Musk watched the trials, he would know that those things aren't true, right? Anybody who watched the trials knows that what he was charged with and what he was convicted for, he wasn't charged, right? It's not criminal, but was corrupt as all get out. But it's not because of that. It's because he's not pro Musk. Alex Jones, he's not in the mainstream. He's not within the Overton window of what Musk wants on his platform. So he doesn't like the risk of Alex Jones, because that would just be harmful to advertisers, things like that. Not necessarily because of the judgments, right? Because he's outside of the mainstream. We don't want him on our platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
I mean,
because an advertiser's not going to want to advertise next to Alex Jones.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, but I think there's another side to that too. There's another aspect, right? Because what does Elon claim he is? He claims he's a man of the people, right? I mean, dude posted a poll on his Twitter asking people if he should step down as the CEO, quote unquote, of Twitter, right? So he's a man of the people. If the people therefore think that somebody is not worth having on Twitter, do you think Musk is actually going to dig down deep into the nitty-gritties to see if there was actually corruption, if this person is actually a bad person like everybody seems to think they are? I don't think he is. So I don't think Elon is going to necessarily look at people like Alex Jones and say, yeah, I mean, all for free speech, so that means you too. I think he's going to just think, okay, what do the people think about this dude? And as such, I'm going to respond accordingly. I think we kind of saw this with Kanye too, because right, he reinstated Kanye, and then Kanye posted the whole thing about going off on Jews, right? And then Elon said, "Okay, you've gone too far," and he suspended his account again.
Yep.
So Elon seems to be in line with the people, which is what he's kind of always claimed to be. And if the people think that somebody's abusing their free speech and is turning it into hate speech, then Elon's just kind of like, okay, I mean, it's the people's choice.
Yeah, and that goes back to the point that we're saying is Elon Musk is not pro free speech. Elon Musk is pro money, in my opinion, and keeping people off the platform and adding other people to the platform for the basis of monetary growth is really his goal. So unlike old Twitter under Dorsey and that crew, which were more politically motivated, Musk's Twitter is still just as censorious. It's just censoring people that risk the monetary potential of Twitter.
Mm-hmm. And that's, again, why I'd push back at the idea that Elon didn't really plan. I do think Elon had a plan in purchasing Twitter. Like, you don't just spend $44 billion and get $13 billion in financing if you don't have a plan. What I would say is that his plan was very poorly planned. It's very clear that he had financial objectives. He had user objectives. He had a lot of objectives that he wanted to accomplish relatively quickly for some, and then just over time with others. So it just happened to be that a lot of the objectives that he had, he didn't consider all things that could have possibly happened. And as a result, all of the things he wanted to do ended up having difficulty. Like, for instance, he tried to increase revenue in the early stages of his purchase by laying off lots of people, because obviously when you lay off people, you get more money back. I think what the average salary for somebody working at like a massive tech company is like 90, 100,000. So, I mean, even if you do the math based on average salary, if you cut thousands of people, you're going to save some money right there off the bat. So it's just that he didn't consider the nitty gritty things. Like, again, like we saw, he hired people to come in and assess what employees needed to stay and what employees needed to go based on the objectives that Twitter wanted to meet. And after they assessed that, they ended up saying, buddy, it looks like you fired a few people that you kind of do need. So Elon didn't consider things deep enough, which is why he's found himself in the problem that he's in right now. Gavin, got anything else to add on to that?
Not really, no. I just going back to originally, it just seems like the purchase of Twitter was really just immature and just kind of like he did have his plan to it, but it was more of just like, he got in the reins of like he had the control over like what he deemed as free, because it's not in line entirely with what free speech is, But it just kind of seems like now that he's got the reins of his agenda in his hands, and he can't, like, he's a businessman through and through. We see that with like the Twitter blue and the gold check marks too. Like, he's a businessman and he wants to make a profit for it. So now that he's got the reins in his hands, it just like, I just can't see it going very well in the future. Is all.
I think Twitter's looking a lot brighter than it did under the old management. Right, as Chris was saying, they're losing what, $4 million? What is it, every year? A day?
A day. They're racking in millions in losses a year.
And that's crazy significant. But now with Musk indicating that he's going to start paying creators on Twitter, it's going to drive people to begin to produce content on Twitter to drive up advertising. So he's got a plan. It's just his technique of getting there is very poor to begin with. Right. So we'll see what happens. But I think Twitter's future is a lot brighter than it was. Do you guys want to talk about those Twitter drops? Or do you guys have something else to say here?
We can. I was just going to mention really briefly, I think one more point that I was going to add on to that last discussion. I think you just brought it up. I kind of lost my train of thought here. But yes, about the whole generating the whole influencer thing and getting people to use the app more. I think the point is that he was trying to come in and fix the financial situation so that can be settled and that he can just focus on allowing those actual user-based objectives to come to fruition, because you can't have user-based objectives if you don't have an app to use. So his initial plan was to come in, obviously, like he did in executing his plan, come in and kind of get the money situation under control and then address other things from there. It's just unfortunate that he hasn't really done very well in doing so. But yeah, we can transition towards the Twitter files, as they're called. But before we do, obviously, I got to remind you to like, share, and subscribe. Your listenership and viewership is very appreciated. And we love it if you continued coming back and sharing this content with your friends, family, and anybody else who's interested or might be interested in hearing us talk about fun topics like Elon Musk purchasing Twitter, even though it was very chaotic. But with that said, the Twitter files. What do you want to say about the Twitter files, Andreas?
Well, what I want to say about the Twitter files is just, it reminds me so much of Operation Mockingbird. It's very overt, the government control that was over Twitter. So much so, right, where the FBI was telling Twitter who they wanted to be banned from the service. Right. So, like, for example, there was the messages saying that, internally people were so excited that they got rid of all the people that were in the last list that the FBI gave them, things like that. And it's just showing how heavily Twitter was infiltrated by the U.S. government. It's astounding. I can't get over that fact. Right. Mm-hmm. It's the government, has so often, I just want to say this, is often, the left likes to call everything fascism, right? That's just like the hit word that they like to use for for everything. Well, fascism really means the corporate merger of government and state. And these Twitter files are direct evidence of fascism in the literal sense, not in this, oh, you don't support, the gays or the trans, therefore you're fascist. Oh, you support closing the border, therefore you're fascist. Because that's not fascism. What was going on behind the scenes at Twitter was fascism at the very basic level. And we can't say it on YouTube, but we see by the way they were acting that the state was deciding who should be sitting in a very round office in 2021. Just by the way that they said, okay, here's this story, you're going to get rid of it. Here's these people, you're going to get rid of them. Here's this, here's that, here's the other thing. And it was the state picking who belonged in what shaped offices. And it's very corrupt. And it almost, makes Twitter an agent of the government, right? So that when you've got yourself banned from Twitter for saying whatever you're going to say, right? It's almost like the government is the one saying that you don't deserve to speak on this platform. And that's the hugest and most mind-blowing thing that I saw on Twitter. And I bet that the same thing is happening to both Facebook and YouTube, right? Just like how the Church Commission saw that, I think it was the CIA and FBI infiltrated all the MSM, right? Back those few decades ago, and that they were controlling what news we saw because that's what they did. I think the same groups based on these Twitter drops are also in cahoots with both YouTube and Twitter. There was a story that Gavin, myself, and Chris wanted to cover, but we set out of an abundance of caution that we're not going to cover that topic, right? And these Twitter files indicate that maybe it's not YouTube that didn't want us to cover that topic because we didn't want to risk the channel. We're new. We don't have the support to get the channel back by doing a Twitter campaign to get the channel back, because that's how you get channels back is to use Twitter to do so. We didn't want to take that risk. But is it actually the U.S. government that's saying, hey, you can't talk about these topics? And that's what these Twitter files seem to show, is that it's... Yeah, Chris.
Oh, no, go for it. Finish your point.
It's crazy. It's beyond corrupt. And, it's insane. And we're not talking about it. Nobody in the mainstream media, right, to any significant extent is talking about this in the way it should be talked about.
Yeah. See, I mean, we do have the evidence that government was very intertwined with Twitter and their top executives while they were still in power in the company, like to the point where there were people who, for the FBI and for Twitter at the same time, and they were receiving pay and wages from both at the same time while they were working for Twitter. So, I mean, this is stuff that we do know. The guy that I watched this initial analysis from, he's Australian. He's a good guy. He's got a great YouTube channel, honestly. Just shout out to Cold Fusion. Fantastic YouTube channel. Very educational. You can go learn a lot of stuff from him. Like I was saying, he's Australian. So when he was going through this whole breakdown and heard that the United States government was involved in the happenings of Twitter and social media like that, it doesn't really surprise him, honestly. He'd feel like there should be some sort of governmental interference, or that there would be, not necessarily that there should be, but that there would be, that the government would step in some regard. So it didn't really surprise him a whole ton. I mean, I think to take this in kind of that direction, it doesn't seem like a lot of people at an international level who don't have the same type of governmental setup and structure that the United States does are very taken aback by the fact that the government is in every single little thing that they do. Gavin, you got anything to discuss about that maybe?
Yeah, no, I just that's just kind of one of the things like, Elon Musk, like we were just talking about free speech earlier, and it's like Elon Musk isn't doing a great job of living up to that, but like this exposure is, and that's just kind of one of the weird parts of this. It's like Elon Musk is living out his agenda, and his agenda is labeled as protecting free speech, but this one is literally exposing that the government is trying to take away our free speech. Is it really free speech? If you can post something on and be like, and the government's just like, no thanks, we don't really want that out there. Or there's a story that comes out and like, it doesn't look good for us, so no thank you. That seems like our government is violating the Constitution, and it is just kind of, it's appalling that it literally is, and it's appalling that nobody is like really taking that into like you were talking about the MSM. It doesn't we understand why that the MSN isn't picking this up, because they've got a lot of ties within the government. They've got a lot of ties within a bunch of corporate backing that this wouldn't make them look good. It would expose a lot of things, but that's just kind of the state that we're at.
Well,
I don't know, Andreas, what do you have to say?
Let me switch hats here to a different hat, because that's what I have to do.
This hat.
It's a
you bring out a whole different knowledge base with the hat change. It's about to be good. Very good.
I'm switching hats to my conspiracy theory hat. This is probably not going to be my conspiracy theory hat for long, because I just whatever.
Our favorite hat.
But these mainstream media, the MSM, not talking about this, might indicate, right, that Mockingbird is still in effect, right? That's just something that I thought of. Right. If we see this interference at Twitter, it's probably at YouTube, it's probably at Facebook, right?
Everywhere.
It's everywhere. And the MSM is not talking about it. Well, maybe they're not talking about it because the government's saying not to talk about it. Right? That'd be both your Fox News and your CNN, because, well, they're in both. Right? That's Mockingbird was saying that everybody got infiltrated, and they were controlling the news in that way. So it's very much corrupt. I'm more excited about this current House that got elected in 2022, right? Because they promised another church commission. So I'm just very curious, long term, if we see, if there is another church commission, right? It's probably not going to be called a church commission, going into social media, right? If we really see that there is heavy intelligence interference within all of these social media sites, that would be beyond interesting. I think it is, and I think that would be awesome to see that. So I'm very interested in the upcoming supposed claims that they're going to do another church commission, and see that come to be. This story also shows us, right, how fractured the government was under the Trump administration, right? Because you had groups within our intelligence agencies that were actively working against his reelection, right? In the FBI and I don't know if the CIA is involved, because I didn't see that, but in the FBI that were suppressing stories, getting rid of voices that were on the Trump-related side of that argument, right? And it just shows how despite what you think of Trump was right when he said there was a deep state, and we see that in these Twitter files, right? There is a faction of the government who thinks that they're better than you are, and want to determine how the government was to go about. I've recently been reading this book about Dulles, right? He was the former head of the CIA, and he was in charge of intelligence for like 50 years. He's not modern, right? This is from World War II onwards. And how Dulles, while he was involved in the CIA and involved in the OOS, right, had his own foreign policy, and he manipulated presidents in order to get his goals that he wanted. For example, in the Bay of Pigs, where Dulles, started that thing, and Dulles was attempting to manipulate JFK into sending troops out and having a more military intervention at the Bay of Pigs, right? And so if for 50 years there was factions within the intelligence agencies that had their own political agendas and their own foreign policy and their own domestic policy, why do we think that stopped when Dulles stopped being in charge of the CIA and left? I don't know what you guys think about it. It's, this is conspiracy hat time. But when Dulles left, I don't think, all of a sudden the intelligence agencies realign themselves underneath the president, right? I think that'd be naive to say, this is conspiracy hat time. I think it was probably business as usual, right? And they still are under their own political goals, right? And their own political agendas apart from the executive branch. Do you guys have any thoughts on my conspiracy hat time?
Gavin?
I mean, I just what you're saying makes sense to me, man. I don't have much more to add on to that. But it would make sense that, if there was already corruption within the government, that doesn't just, vanish
for 50 years. 50 years.
It's that's entrenched in the government. It's not coming out by just, oh yeah, we got a new administration, there's a new party ruling over us. No, that's not how corruption works. Right. And I want to see that addressed. I'd vote for someone who'd address that. That'd be cool.
I don't know if you can, right? Trump, we voted in Trump, right? And he said he was going to get rid of it. And then, these Twitter files that almost indicate that he got removed because he tried to get rid of it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that brings up the question. It does. It brings up the question, can you get rid of it? Is it just too deeply entrenched? Because you're obviously not going to whip out the blow machine.
Right.
And just get rid of it. You got to do a deep clean. So if you don't have the ability to do a deep clean and actually get rid of its effect and its influence from the roots, you're gonna have a serious problem on your hands.
If I remember correct, one of these Twitter drops, one of these Twitter files, were showing how the government was performing. Was it a psyop? Let me see here. Against people on Twitter, in order to push the Russia narrative, saying that Trump was corrupted by Russia, when we've now seen with the Mueller investigation that story was false, right? And so it's so intriguing, right? And in hindsight, now that we've seen the documents that Mueller put out, finishing his investigation, showing that Trump corruption with Russia was not true. And then I don't know if they're going to prosecute Steele for making up some of this stuff, but we'll see. I think that's what the Durham investigation's for. As Robert Barnes was discussing Durham many months ago, I don't know Durham as much as Barnes does, but Barnes thinks that Durham is your cleanup guy, and that all Durham's going to do is get rid of the people that are obvious and allow the rest to remain, right, and not implicate the government in his investigation.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. But I mean, if there's one thing that we can thank Elon for in this whole mess of purchasing Twitter, it is the Twitter files, isn't it? I guess kind of revealed a lot of deep state stuff that we weren't super entirely sure about, but had suspicions about, but now are actually sure about. So, I mean, we can thank him for that. Anyways, transitioning into the concepts at play, the underlying principles. What do we think is happening as it pertains to Elon and his purchase of Twitter, how the whole thing unfolded, or anything that was uncovered during Elon's takeover?
Gavin?
Yeah, I just that's kind of a hard one, because the thing that comes to mind immediately is just I'm not a big fan of big money. I think that there should be a limit to the amount of wealth that one individual can have. But in this instance, it just kind of seems that he got another toy and he's just playing around with it, playing around with people's livelihood, which, in all reality, definitely should have been happening in the first, $4 million loss a day that's severe, but it just kind of seems like he doesn't really, like, he's got it going in a direction, but it feels so strange to me. I don't know, but then, like, there's also on the other side, like, all of this other stuff. It just, like, I don't know. It's very strange to me. Andreas, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I feel like Andreas is going to have something to say.
I don't know. I am at a loss for words, really. Reading through these Twitter files, it's just so corrupt. So it's the, as I stated before, right? Where the left wants to call everything fascism. This is fascism, and I don't know if we have a way to handle it, right? Because it's just, even if we were to get somebody in who promised to clean up these intelligence agencies and their blatant disregard for the First Amendment here in the United States, it's, I don't think they could, right? It's almost as if you need to completely purge or dissolve the CIA and FBI and rebuild it to fix the problem. I just don't see any other way.
And it's like when you try and do that. Yeah, sorry, Rare Cup.
I was going to say shout out to Rare Cup, who's in the audience.
I just
very excited to see you.
What's up, man?
Hey, if you're interested, Rare Cup, I really want to talk about at some point in the near future this whole Andrew Tate thing again, because what we've seen with the Eliza Blue stuff and then those victims coming back and saying that they weren't actually victims. We should talk about that. Maybe get you on for a show and see what your thoughts are, because that's very interesting. We talked a little bit about Eliza Blue earlier, but it seems like it's pretty shammy. We should talk about that later. Maybe send us a message, and we can talk about it. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. It's besides the point. But shout out to Rare Cup.
Yeah, shout out Rare Cup, man. Potential future episodes sneak peek right there. Wink, wink. But yeah, I mean, anyways, so initially the concept that I saw at play, I wouldn't say it's super hard to identify an underlying principle here. Actually, for me, it was pretty easy to see. And this is why I know you think the intro is corny. I know you think the intro is corny. The new one about money, sex, and power, and we're fighting that. But it's true. Every issue that you think that we cover usually boils down to one of money, sex, or power. And it's no different here in this instance. In fact, Elon compounds it, and he puts it in a nice little linear progression of how almost all, he didn't get the sex part, that's fine, but how the money and the power kind of created this whole little linear transition of chaos. So it started out as a power struggle with him fighting Twitter to try and take over Twitter, right? Try and purchase Twitter. He initially wanted to be on the board. They rejected it. That's a whole power struggle at work right there. He eventually did get the deal done. And after he got the deal done, it became a money struggle because he's trying to turn around an app that's not making a profit. So in all of this, he's now turned the power struggle into a money struggle. And then since he tried to fix the money struggle by getting rid of employees, because that's the easiest way he could think of to start generating revenue by cutting costs, that ended up turning into a leadership struggle where his employees started leaving and he just forced them into a tough situation to the point where a lot of people who were employed there didn't respect him any longer. Obviously, 50% of the workforce being laid off or leaving after the initial first few weeks or month or so of him having leadership control. It's just a whole disaster. So I think it's a huge linear transition there. Initially, we see it went from a power struggle to a money struggle, from a money struggle to a leadership struggle. Now, I'm interested to see what you guys think about that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, man.
I like that answer. That's the best answer I've heard all day. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know what else to say there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All you can say is yeah sometimes. That's totally fair.
Yeah. You summed it up pretty good, man. It's like
Well,
it is a power and money struggle there at the end of the day, you know. But
yeah, I
what
mean,
do we
effectively.
do with that?
Exactly. So that was the next question I was going to have is what do we do when we observe things like this whole situation where you have not only one struggle at work, but you have another struggle at work, and that ends up turning into a whole other struggle. When you have this or observe this in life, or even just experience it in your own life, how is it that we can assess that and we can act on it? I think personally, I'm going to say that seeking power and money ruins relationships fundamentally because when you've made whatever engagement you're involved in about the objective over the people, you've completely reversed it because you've completely alienated the people who you need to get the job done, thinking that you can get what you want aside from people being happy or people being satisfied, right? I mean, we saw that earlier in this whole debacle. Like he's not getting a good rep with the people he employs, and it's just causing problems to the point where they ended up having to call back some of the people they fired because they're like, "Oh, actually, sorry, we need you." It's just a whole mess. But I think it does go to show that seeking power and money or anything above the relationships that you have with the people that you need to be doing it with does cause problems.
And it's just like at the end of the day, it's just like you can't be worshiping money or power. You know, there's other things in the world to worship. There's a pretty good one running above us right now. But like when you worship money like that, you know, it contorts your life into this like shriveled up nightmare. You end up doing things you don't really want to be doing. You know, you make sacrifices to yourself that don't benefit you, and like they might benefit you financially, but like you lose a part of your humanity in there, you know. And like it's the same thing with power. You sell your soul to, you know, get the power, and it's just, yeah, don't be doing it. There's better things to be worshiping in the world.
Don't be doing it, Andreas.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I've been trying to chat with Rare Cup here real quick, but it's I don't know. It's just it is really just power, right? Elon Musk thought that he could do something good, right, and that he had the ability and the authority to do it, and it's not been going well for him. But you know, it is what it is. Sorry, I was out of the conversation for like 5 minutes, but you know that is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Any other grand takeaways that we want to leave our audience with?
I just want to, this isn't necessarily as much of a takeaway, but one of the things that like kind of struck out, or like not struck out, but like kind of stuck out to me was just Elon Musk basically did this overnight. You know, he spent $44 billion in what, like, how many months did it take this whole thing to come off? I'll never see $1 billion in my life. No.
Well, now attitude you won't.
What?
Not with that attitude you won't.
I mean, like at the end of the day, I can't see how you get that much money without hurting somebody else. You know? And it's just, that's where I just kind of like, in the future, I feel like we should be watching out for people who can amass that much money, you know? Elon Musk is an incredibly smart man, you know? PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, is he behind Boeing too? I don't know. No, but like those are 3 incredible companies that they've done a lot. But, you know, SpaceX doesn't, rocket ships and social media are very different ballparks, you know? And I just feel like something we should be watching out for at the end of the day.
I'm just trying to delete a chat here, guys. But I think the takeaway is that the takeaway I think is that just like I said, I think it was in the in several of these videos. Really, if you want to know something is true or not, you got to see those original documents. You got to read, and you got to do the research, and you can't just let, say, talking heads on Twitter tell you what the truth is. right? You can't let people on the main TV tell you what the truth is. And I think that's a huge takeaway, seeing how much information was removed. And it's incredible. It's just a side point. I'm trying to figure this out so that we don't get a bunch of bots spamming our email when my private chat didn't work to Rare Cup.
Oh, I see. Fair enough. Technical struggles. The struggle is real.
Yeah, sorry.
It is real, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, do you want to tie in like the faith aspect at all? Because I feel like that's something we haven't really touched on entirely yet. Is there anything that we feel that we can hit on from a faith-based perspective?
Don't worship money, worship God.
That's pretty straightforward. But Gavin, why should I worship God then?
Because if God wants you to have that, if God knows that if you can be handled with much money, He'll give you that much money. Like, you have to come to Him in faith, though. Like, at the end of the day, the people with the most are the ones who have been able to, like, at most of them, generally speaking, can handle the amount of money that they've been given. It is a corrupting thing, but, like, at the end of the day, if you're someone that can handle that much money, you can do it naturally. God knows that. He wants to give it to you. You just got to go to Him first, But there's also, that's just one of the many, many, many reasons that you should follow God. He's a pretty cool guy. I'd love to tell you about him sometime.
Yeah. I give up on this chat here, but I think the big, biblical takeaway, to go on top of what Gavin said, in the Bible, it says, it talks about that one story, being trusted with the small and then getting better. Yes, Rare Cup, I agree that here. That Elon Musk has been a net positive for Twitter. He did get rid of CP from the platform. We're just talking about how because you jumped in a little bit late. We're just talking about how his statement of wanting free speech hasn't been proving out to be completely true, because of Alex Jones and Eliza Blue, and that's why we're kind of commenting on that, as well as he didn't have as great of a strategy as he needed when he got in, because he really blundered with Twitter Blue and that whole debacle that I think has fixed itself, but it's just it wasn't as strategic as it needed to be. So we're not criticizing him on a stat that he's been negative for Twitter. It's just he didn't know what he was getting into when he jumped in. But as I was saying, in the scriptures, it talks about, if you're, being trusted with small things, the more that will be given to you, right? So and that's just something that most people don't think. They think they're just going to buy their way into something, and they haven't done the precursor work in order to be trusted, as with the other thing, right? In the case of Elon Musk, right? He hasn't, he's been trusted with a lot, right? He did Tesla, he did SpaceX, I think he did PayPal. Yeah. But Twitter is a completely different beast, and he thinks that just by buying his way in, that he can solve the problem, and that wasn't it. It wasn't what it was, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't do those small steps. God may have allowed him to get Twitter, but that's evident, right? I guess, right? Yeah. He didn't do the precursor work.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah, money does solve a lot of problems, but money doesn't solve the amount of problems that God can. Amen.
Yep.
Amen.
There you go.
Sorry if I sound rambly. I'm still frustrated at not getting rid of the stupid
comment. He's still fighting over the comment? Wow.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Boy. Unbelievable. Can you imagine? Man, any closing thoughts?
Like, comment, subscribe, share with all your friends and family.
Oh, we beat him to it.
Yeah, apparently share our email with everybody too, so we can get all of the porn bots into our Gmail, and all of those other fun things.
But you can submit, like, if you want us to be like talking about something, like, email it. Don't spam us with bots.
What was that? That whole just that. What was it? That was hilarious. Oh my goodness.
Okay, here's true story. Okay, So I used to work for a church while I was going through college for like a summer. Okay. And
Oh my
I was
gosh.
IT, and apparently somehow I'm not going to give the church's name away. You know, if you really want, you probably find it out. But there was a guy, and he was in the communications department of that company, and somehow somebody got access to his email, right? And so they just started spamming his email with all of this porn because they really didn't like the church. And so he would get all these, you know, technical services requests, and we'd go in and try to block all of these various bots that were continually spamming his communications, because he's in communications, account with all this porn. And it was kind of ridiculous, which is why we put all the emails behind a transparent layer inside of the website, so that couldn't happen again. But still, that's why I'm very upset at this private chat not working, because I've seen the outcomes on the other side with all of the porn bots. That can't happen if somebody gets access to the email address. We'll see what happens. If there's lots of porn bots, and I know what happened, and I'm very disappointed in myself. And we'll figure it out. But it is what it is.
Yeah, people, man.
We're not going to pin your email so that you get the porn bots too, but we'll see you guys next time. Like, share, and subscribe. Fun chat. Oh, next week, aren't we starting to do something new and have just a hangout where we go over the internet in general and laugh at the stupidity that is there?
You know, you're spoiling the video that I was going to upload tomorrow. I was actually going to make a public post about it. But yes, effectively, there is something new that we're going to be doing next week that you, lovely viewers and listeners, can look forward to. We kind of just mess around, just hang out. We talk, and we watch stuff. And it's a good time.
The normal show is not going away.
What?
The normal show is not going away. We're still going to talk about weekly topics, but we will having an additional show, which I guess we could probably give a separate title inside of the little title thing here.
After party.
After party.
Man, they're revealing too much information. This is top secret. I'm going to have to kick all the viewers out if you continue doing this like this. But
don't you dare kick out Rare Cup. I'll throw hands, bro.
Yeah, see, this is how you do things in the modern world. What you do is you give people the tease, and then you tell them that they have to come back to the channel tomorrow to understand what we teased them about today. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Y'all are going to have to come back. The video will be up tomorrow explaining in full what we are going to be doing, because we are now out of 2022 review topics. So look forward to it. It'll be up there tomorrow. Anyway.
Oh, and if you have show topics, now that you have our email address, send us the show topics. And that'll be interesting. Look forward to hearing from you guys. Look forward to seeing you guys in the chat. See you guys next week.
Yes.
Peace.
Peace out, y'all.